They always to avoid room 943. Not officially, of course. On paper, it was just another room on the top floor of St. Augustine Medical Center. Massive concrete and glass monolith that loomed over the city like a tombstone. But, among the night staff, it had a reputation. A quiet warning passed between shifts, shared in break rooms, and whispered over lukewarm coffee. Don't volunteer for Ward 9 if they put someone in 943. They never explained why. They just looked down. Their lips pressed tight and muttered something about it being bad luck, or cursed. Or worse, I was new, a transfer nurse, and more than a little proud. I didn't believe in ghosts, and I sure as hell didn't believe in urban legends. My first night shift started on a cold Thursday in October, right around Halloween. I should have taken the warnings seriously. The hospital was unusually quiet, that night quieter than usual for a place that lived on the edge of life and death. I'd been assigned to Ward 9 for the night with only one other nurse on call, an older woman named Karen, who looked like she'd been working there since the Cold War. She greeted me with a tight nod, eyes sunken and tired. Just watch your monitors. Don't go wandering off. She didn't say it like advice, it was a command. At 1:12 a.m., the call came in. A man unconscious, pale, vitals unstable, was being rushed up from the ER. They needed a room ready. Of course, the only open room was 943. Karen froze when she saw the assignment. That room's not in use. I pointed at the board. It is now. She stared at me for a moment longer, her face unreadable. Then she muttered, "Don't say I didn't warn you," and walked away. They brought the man up on a gurney, 2 orderlies, and a paramedic. He looked dead already, ashen skin, lips blue, a dark line of bruising running down his neck. I glanced at the intake papers. Name, unknown. Age, estimated mid-40s, found in an alleyway near the old paper mill. Notes, no ID, no signs of trauma, not responsive to stimuli. He didn't look homeless. His nails were clean, his shoes were expensive. But there was something off about his face, like it was too tight, pulled over bone. I helped them settle him into the bed in 943. As soon as his body touched the mattress, every light in the room flickered. "You see that?" one of the orderlies asked. I nodded. Probably just the circuit, old wiring. But I wasn't so sure. I returned to the nurse's station and stared at the monitors. Room 943's vitals were flatlining, no heart rate, no BP, no oxygen saturation. But when I checked the equipment in his room 5 minutes earlier, everything had been functioning normally. I called Karen over. "The monitor's glitching." She didn't even look. "It's not a glitch." "What?" She finally met my eyes. "That room doesn't record vitals. Hasn't for years. Doesn't matter what machines you plug in, the data won't come through." "That's not possible," I said, trying to hide the growing chill in my spine. She lit a cigarette right there in the hospital. "Doesn't mean it's not true." At 2:27 a.m., I decided to check on the patient again. His door was cracked, slightly open. I pushed it wider and stopped. The room was colder than the hallway, freezing. My breath clouded in the air. He was sitting up. The man who had been comatose 20 minutes ago was sitting upright in bed, eyes wide open. But they weren't looking at me. He was staring at the ceiling. "Sir?" I asked cautiously. No response. I stepped closer. His eyes were completely black. No sclera, no pupils, just endless dark, like twin sinkholes sucking in the light. His lips began to move, but the sound wasn't coming from his mouth. It was coming from the wall behind him. I turned around. There was nothing there, but the wall was bulging, pulsing like it was breathing. I backed away quickly, heart hammering, and grabbed the call button. No response. The intercom was dead. The hallway outside had gone completely silent. I ran. Back at the nurse's station, I tried the phone. It was dead. Every line. Even my cell had no signal, just static. When I tried to dial out, Karen was gone. I searched the entire floor, every patient room, every closet. Nothing. Room 943's door was now completely shut, even though I had left it open. And there was something under the door, a thick, black liquid, seeping out and pooling into the hallway. It didn't move like normal fluid. It pulsed almost like it had a heartbeat. Then the lights in the entire corridor went out, to be continued in part 2. Black veins in the walls. Black veins in the walls. Darkness. The emergency lights, those weak, trembling red bulbs, should have kicked in, but they didn't. The corridor outside room 943 was pitch black, silent except for the soft, wet drip, drip of that black fluid, leaking beneath the door. I stood frozen, staring at the pool. It had spread across the tile like veins, long tendrils stretching out in jagged, unnatural patterns, as if trying to reach for something. Then I heard the whispering, faint at first, like wind through dry leaves. But it wasn't the HVAC system. It was names. 100 voices, murmuring names, overlapping, tangled together. Some I didn't recognize, but one made my blood freeze. My name, Lena, soft, and then again, louder, closer. Lena, come in, The voice was coming from inside room 943. I backed away. My shoes slipped on the tile, smearing the black fluid. It was cold, burning cold, like liquid nitrogen. My skin blistered where it touched. I ran, but no matter how fast I moved, the hallway seemed endless. Doors blurred past me. 944, 945, 946. But when I looked back, room 943 was still right behind me, as if I hadn't moved at all. I blinked. The entire floor had changed. The walls were cracked, rotted, paint peeled in long curling strips. Ceiling tiles sagged and bled dark stains, and the lights, those flickering overhead fluorescents, violently, but gave off no light. It was like I'd stepped into a mirror image of the hospital, a dead version of it. The hair on my arms stood up. Then I saw her. A woman was standing at the end of the hallway, pale, barefoot, wearing a patient gown. Her long black hair was wet and clinging to her face. She had no eyes, just empty, sunken sockets. And yet she looked at me. In her left hand, she held a broken IV stand. In her right, a nurse's ID badge. Karen's eye opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came. She began to walk toward me, slow and twitching, dragging one leg behind her like it was broken. Every step echoed like a dropped scalpel. I turned and ran the other way, heart punching against my ribs. I found a stairwell. I yanked the door open and threw myself inside, but the stairwell was all wrong. The stairs spiraled down, impossibly far, the center pitch black and bottomless. The walls were lined with hands, real, human hands, jutting out from the concrete like fossils, trying to claw their way out. Some of them were still twitching. I slammed the door shut. I tried to take the elevator instead, but the panel blinked, floor locked. None of the buttons worked. The hospital system had gone into some kind of quarantine mode. I was trapped on Ward 9. My radio crackled. At first it was static. Then, "Don't go back in the room, Lena. Don't let it in." It was Karen's voice, but her tone was frantic, as if she were calling from underwater. I pressed the receiver. "Where are you?" More static. Then another voice came through. Not Karen's, not human. "She's already here." That's when I heard the metal dragging sound, like something heavy scraping across the floor. It came from behind me. Room 943's door was open again, only it wasn't a room anymore. The doorway now led into a black void. The walls of the room had collapsed inward like a mouth, lined with jagged metal and cracked tile teeth, and something was inside. It moved, in the dark, but I couldn't see it clearly. All I could make out were its hands, long, skeletal, with too many joints. It grabbed the hospital bed and pulled it into the dark, the metal groaning. Then it turned toward me, Its eyes blinked open to glowing white orbs like surgical light sand. It began to crawl out. I ran. Again, no direction, just away. I found a storage room and slammed the door shut, barricading it with a rolling cart. I collapsed to the floor, trying to breathe. My uniform soaked in sweat and blood and that inky black sludge. That's when I noticed the photos on the walls, old photos of hospital staff. I scanned them quickly. Nurses, doctors, surgeons. Some dated back to the 1950s, and there, in a frame cracked with age, was room 943. But it was different. In the photo, the door was chained shut and painted over with symbols. Symbols I didn't recognize. Below the photo was a small brass plaque: room 943, closed indefinitely. Incident date, October 31st, 1971. Do not enter. I suddenly understood. They'd locked it away for a reason. But someone had opened it again, and now it was loose. I sat in the heart thudding, staring at the dusty old photograph. The brass plaque beneath it gleamed even in the dim red glow of the emergency lights. It felt ancient, cursed, even. Like something no one was supposed to touch. No one was supposed to see. Room 943 had been sealed off for over 50 years. Yet tonight, something was in it. A low sound vibrated through the floor, almost like a growl mixed with a gurgling hum. I pressed my ear to the door cautiously. Nothing. Silence. I carefully moved the cart aside and opened the door just enough to peek out. The hallway was empty, but it wasn't quiet anymore. A faint humming noise now filled the entire floor, like someone whispering a lullaby through an old radio. That's when I saw the man. He was walking down the hall like he belonged, their white coat, clipboard in hand, head down as if checking vitals. He moved with ease, casual, normal. Too normal for this nightmare. A doctor. He turned toward me without warning. "Nurse Lena," he said calmly, like we were on the same shift. "Come with me." He shouldn't have known my name. I stepped back. "Who are you?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only teeth. "I used to run this ward," he said, voice dry as paper. "Before the..." He paused, glancing at a blood-soaked ceiling tile. "Incident." His ID badge was upside down, but I could still make out the name, Dr. Harold Nemes. I'd seen that name once during training, in an archived article about a medical malpractice scandal from the 70s, a neurosurgeon who experimented on unconscious patients in secret. They said he vanished after the hospital shut down Ward 9 temporarily. That was over 5 decades ago. He hadn't aged a day. He motioned for me to follow. I didn't. He narrowed his eyes. "Patients need you, nurse. You will come." The hallway began to twist behind him, walls folding like paper, lights flickering, in a rhythm that made my eyes hurt. The floor shifted under his feet, turning into a dark, liquid membrane. Then he vanished, just dissolved into the wall like fog in the sun. A voice crackled behind me. Double quotes, "Lena, ... don't listen to him." It was Karen's voice again, this time clear, coming from the intercom above. I looked up. The speaker was sparking, but her voice came through strong. "He's part of it." He opened the room in 71. The patient was never supposed to wake up. "What patient?" I asked, looking around. Silence. Then a single word, whispered so softly, I wasn't sure I heard it right. "My son." I stumbled backward, breath catching in my throat. Karen had a son. Suddenly, it all made sense, the way she looked at room 943 with guilt. The smoking, the silence, the dread. She knew what was in that room. She had been here when it all started. I ran. The hallway warped around me. One moment, I was at room 947. The next I was back in front of room 943 again. Only now, the door was open. Inside, the hospital bed was empty, but on the wall, written in something black and pulsing, was a message. Let him owe you to my hands began to shake. Double quotes Lena, ... Karen's voice whispered again, this time from directly behind me. I turned. She stood there, eyes wild, hair matted with sweat. She looked more alive than she had hours ago, panicked, energized, almost possessed. We don't have much time, she said. What is it? I asked. What's in that room? Karen didn't blink. He was born in this hospital, 1970. Complications at birth. They said he wouldn't live. But Harold Dr. Niems said he had a new procedure, something experimental, said he could fix my son's brain. Tears ran down her cheeks. He turned him into something else. Something that doesn't die. Something that feeds. My skin prickled. Feeds on what? Fear, pain, memories. He's still in there, Lena. Every time they open the room, he spreads. He infects the walls, the power, the people. I looked past her at the ceiling. Black veins were spreading again, like roots in reverse, reaching outward from room 943. Karen grabbed my arm. We need to seal the room again, or no one's walking out of here. Just then, a monitor at the nurse's station sparked to life, for the first time since the power went out. It showed movement, a live feed from room 943. The patient was back in bed, only this time, he was sitting upright, staring directly into the camera. His mouth moved, no sound. Karen and I leaned in. On the screen, he mouthed the words slowly, deliberately. She lied. I looked at Karen. Her face went pale. He's trying to confuse you, she whispered. Don't listen. I turned back to the screen. Now the patient was pointing at something. The camera panned on, its own to the wall. There was a photo there, the same one I'd seen earlier. Only now, Karen's face had been scratched out violently, replaced with another one. Mine. The power died again. Every screen went black. The emergency lights flickered, then failed, and from deep within room 943, I heard a sound no human throat could make. A low, howling, wet noise, like something dying in reverse. Then I heard footsteps, and they were coming fast, and they were coming fast. The footstep tile like a heartbeat gone mad. I grabbed Karen's arm, and together we ran toward the stairwell at the far end of the hall, away from room 943, away from it. Whatever was behind us wasn't running, it was crawling, fast. You could hear the slap of wet palms and the long scrape of nails against linoleum. The walls pulsed around us like they were alive, breathing, exhaling cold rot into the air. Light bulbs exploded above our heads, one by one, and shadows danced across the broken tiles, like hands trying to grab our ankles. We hit the stairwell door and shoved it. Open. Finally light, but only for a second. The stairwell stretched downward forever, no end in sight. The same dim red glow pulsed downward like a descending heartbeat. We had no choice. Down we went. Our footsteps echoed in a loop that felt wrong, like a recording of ourselves following us. Somewhere on the third flight, the air changed. It didn't smell like disinfectant or bleach anymore. It smelled like dirt, earth, grave, soil. Karen stopped and gripped the railing. This isn't real, she whispered. The stairwell doesn't go down more than 6 floors. I looked at the number on the wall. -3. Basement 3. That floor didn't exist. What happens if we keep going? I asked. Karen's voice cracked. We don't. Suddenly, the lights went out again. Total blackness. I reached for my flashlight, flicked it on and screamed. The wall was moving. Hundreds, thousands of white hospital bracelets crawled up from cracks in the concrete like worms. They were covered in dried blood and twitching slightly, like they still remembered the wrists they once clung to. Each one had a name. Each one was scratched out. Karen pulled me back up the stairs. We have to get to the archives, she said. There's a record of him down there. The real patient file. The original one. If we can find it, maybe we can learn how to stop this. We exited the stairwell into a hallway I didn't recognize. It was hospital, and yet it wasn't. The walls were lined with rusted file cabinets, and the overhead lights buzzed erratically. There were no rooms here, just corridor after corridor of paper. Stacks of records, photos, a mausoleum of forgotten people. Karen ran her fingers along the drawers. 1971. 1971. Finally, she found it. Patient 0, she whispered, pulling open the drawer. Inside was a single folder, blackened and warm to the touch, like it had been pulled from a fire. She opened it. There was a photograph. A boy 8 years old, maybe. Pale skin, thin lips. But his eyes, they were black. Voids, even in the picture. The ink around his face had melted into a blurred stain. Name, redacted Dobb, October 31st, 1970. Admitted, November 1st, 1970. Diagnosis, unresponsive postnatal seizures. Possible brain death. Treating physician, Dr. Harold Neems. Procedure performed, non-sanctioned experimental neuroreactive therapy. Outcome, patient did not expire. Underneath, scrawled in a different pen, were the words, patient maintains consciousness without biological markers. No pulse, no respiration, still breathing. Karen's hands shook. He should have died, but something kept him here. Is he even human? I asked. Karen didn't answer. Suddenly, the hallway shook. Paper flew everywhere. A deep groaning filled the air, like the building itself was waking up. Karen grabbed the folder. We have to burn it. All of it. A laugh echoed through the corridor. Low male. Familiar. Dr. Neems stepped into view from behind a filing cabinet, clipboard in hand. His coat was soaked with something dark, and his shoes left prints that smoked on the tile. You think paper will fix this? He asked. Karen raised the folder like a weapon. I watched you destroy him, she screamed. You turned my son into a shell, a parasite. You lied, Neems grinned. I didn't lie. I gave him a chance, and now he's awake. Then he vanished in a blink of ash. The fire alarm blared suddenly, too late. The sprinklers didn't release water. They rained blood. It dripped from the ceiling, coating the documents, the floors, our faces. It was warm, fresh, and it smelled alive. The lights flickered. The air grew cold. The folder in Karen's hands began to squirm, like something inside was trying to crawl out. She looked at me, voice flat. Lena, do you believe in hell? I couldn't speak. She dropped the folder, and it burst open. Inside, beneath the photo, was a strip of skin, pale, still wet, with the faintest ink of a hospital ID tattooed into it. It read, 943. Then the walls cracked open, and we saw him. He stepped through the tear in the building like he was walking out of a womb. The patient, tall, unnaturally thin, eyes like eclipse voids, mouth wide enough to bite through bone. His body pulsed with veins that weren't filled with blood, but something darker like ink made from screams. He didn't speak. He remembered, and as he stared at me, I knew he knew my name. To be continued in part 5. The Memory Eater. The Memory Eater. He didn't wide it. The patient, whatever he truly was, moved through the broken corridor with impossible silence, as if the ground itself dared not make a sound beneath him. Karen and I stumbled back, slipping on the slick red film, now coating the floor. His eyes, if you could call them that, weren't just black. They were hungry. Looking into them was like staring into a drain, sucking everything you were, your fears, your childhood, your identity down into a pit with no bottom. I blinked, and Karen screamed. She fell to her knees, clutching her head. He's in me, she sobbed. Oh God, he's taking it. I watched helplessly as her eyes rolled back and blood leaked from her ears. No, I grabbed her shoulders. Karen, focus on me. Don't let him take your mind. Too late. Her pupils dilated until her eyes were black, just like his. Her lips moved rapidly, repeating something over and over. Too fast to understand, I leaned closer, then I heard it. Don't forget, ... Don't forget, ... Don't forget, ... The patient tilted his head as if amused. He raised a single finger. Karen stopped speaking, then she collapsed as open. Chest still, mouth frozen in mid-sentence. Her brain was gone. I stumbled backward, my hands trembling. The world around me twisted. Hallways folded in on themselves. Doors opened into screaming voids. And the red emergency lights now pulsed to the beat of my own racing heart. I turned to run and hit a wall that hadn't been there a moment before. Room 943. Again, it followed me. The door swung open on its own. There was no bed inside now, only a mirror. The room was dark, and the mirror was tall, almost reaching the ceiling. At first, I saw nothing, just myself, blood-smeared and terrified. But then, the image changed. I saw myself as a child, crying in a hospital bed. My mother beside me, but she wasn't comforting me. She was whispering something to a doctor, Dr. Neems, and then she signed a form. I shook my head. No, that's not real. The mirror shimmered. Now I was older, 16, in a coma, tubes everywhere. The file cabinet in the corner said 943. My chart read, candidate for neuroreactive testing. I backed away from the mirror. This isn't my memory, I muttered, but part of me knew it was. I'd forgotten. Something had made me forget. The door slammed shut behind me. The mirror cracked from behind the shattered glass. He stepped out, his form splitting the reflection like a birth from my own psyche. He grinned. I've been inside you a long time, Lena. I turned and ran. No more strategy, no more logic, just instinct. The walls of the hospital twisted around me. The layout no longer made sense. Elevators opened into operating theaters, bathrooms bled black sludge, and somewhere behind me, I could hear Karen's voice, only wrong, distorted, repeating one phrase over and over. You brought him back. You brought him back. You brought him back. Finally, I reached the morgue. It was the only door left that hadn't twisted, melted, or bled. I pushed through and slammed it behind me. Inside, the air was icy. Frost coated the steel drawers. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard a soft metallic click. One of the body drawers slowly slid open. A hand reached out. I grabbed a nearby bone Sony thing that could be a weapon. Then I saw the face, mine. It was me, lying on that tray. Dead eyes open, blood leaking from the corners of my mouth. A tag on my toe read, Lena Haro, Dodd, October 31st, 2025. I dropped the saw. No, 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 this isn't real. But it was. I could feel it. Every moment I stayed here, more of me was being rewritten, eaten, swallowed by the patient. He didn't kill the people. He consumed. He replaced them. That's why the files were always blank. That's why no one remembered. That's why room 943 was sealed. It wasn't a room, it was a doorway. A parasite lived inside, it feeding on memory, identity, time, feeding on people who were forgotten, erased from existence, left only in brief glimpses of hospital corridors that no longer existed, faces and files that had no names. I looked at my own dead body one last time. Then the door behind me creaked open. He was back, the patient, now more complete, taller, stronger, as if consuming Karen had given him form. He reached out his hand. My mind started to split, but before I could break, the fire alarm blared again. This time, the sprinklers released real water, holy water. A searing hiss filled the room. The patient reeled back, smoke rising from his skin. Through the haze, I saw her. Karen burned, eyes bleeding but alive, holding a small, scorched vial. She'd activated the emergency baptismal system meant to cleanse operating rooms in extreme Infection scenarios. Lena, she shouted, run, while he's weak. I didn't wait. I sprinted past the patient, past the mirror, past the ghosts and echoes in impossible hallways, toward the only place left that might hold the key. The hospital chapel. The hospital chapel. I burst forth, heart threatening to explode in my chest. The chapel was small and cold, lit only by the dull glow of a flickering votive stand. The crucifix above the altar was cracked, Christ's face weathered and blackened, like it had been burned. Rows of pews stood crooked, some overturned, as if something had once raged through here. Behind me, the air shuddered. He was coming. The patient no longer, just a boy from the past. Not even a man. A force, ancient and hungry. I raced to the altar. Karen had said something earlier about sealing him again, locking him in. I didn't know how, but this chapel was the only part of the hospital that hadn't warped. It resisted him. Then I saw it. Behind the altar, carved into the stone floor, was a symbol, an ancient C, etched with names I couldn't pronounce. Around it were 4 candle holders, 1 in each corner. 3 were broken. 1 still held a wick, and nearby on the floor, tucked behind a pew, was a rusted lighter. The doors behind me exploded open. The patient slithered into the room, skin slick and boiling with black liquid veins. His face shifted as he moved, Karen's features flickering. Then my own, then others I didn't recognize, but felt I had once known. He was made of everyone he had taken, and he was still hungry. This is the end, Lena. His voice wasn't sound, it was pressure, vibrations behind my eyes. He wasn't speaking into the room, he was speaking into me. I lit the lighter. 1 flame dot, it trembled in my hand like it wanted to run. I crouched at the seal and pressed the flame to the 1 remaining. Wick dot, the candle sparked. The symbol on the floor glowed. The patient screamed. The walls cracked and bled. Every window in the chapel exploded outward, sucking in wind from nowhere. The seal erupted with light white, blinding light. Danced for a moment. I could see all the souls inside him, hundreds, thousands, their faces, frozen in mid-dash. Scream. Karen, the real Karen. She looked at me. Finish it. I struck the lighter again and dragged the flame across the floor, burning the seal into a full circle. The light rose in spirals. The patient lunged. I screamed and held the flame high as his clawed hand came down in then silence. When I woke up, I was outside, on the hospital lawn. The building behind me was gone. No debris, no flames, just absence, like it had never existed. Not a single trace of St. Augustine Medical Center remained. An ambulance pulled up minutes later. They said they received a call from an unknown number, reporting a collapse. But there was nothing here. Nothing but me, and the lighter, still warm, in my hand. 3 weeks later, I was discharged from the psychiatric evaluation unit with a clean bill of health, mostly because no one could prove the hospital ever existed. The address, a parking lot, the records, vanished. Even the license I had from St. Augustine, gone, like it had never been issued. But I remember every moment, and sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I still see flashes of that room 943, just for a second. And sometimes, it stares back. Epilogue. Discharge summary. Name: Lena Harrow. Status: released. Incident report: inconclusive notes. Subject claims to have sealed an entity within a hospital that no longer exists. Warning: memory corruption likely. Psychological monitoring recommended. Signature: Dr. Harold Nealon. Dr. Harold Nealon.